I'm joined by Harry Litman of the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Make sure you all subscribe to that Talking Feds YouTube channel. Hey, Harry, as Donald Trump continues to melt down, earlier in the week, he had that bizarre interview with Elon Musk where he sounded like Daffy Duck, and it was clear he was in steep cognitive decline. Over the last week on Friday, he did that bizarre speech in Montana. I mean, he seems very unwell, very desperate, very tired. And then he does these tired old tricks. He's got like 3 or 4 tricks. One of them is litigation. And his litigation follows a very common pattern where they are frivolous cases, but they are headline driven. So he'll often come out and have just a big number that he just pulls out of nowhere. $100 million, $500 million, $300 million, and he'll be suing someone for that amount of money. He then uses that to fundraise off of, and then he tries to drag out the case as much as possible, continue to raise funds off of it. And then when he's sanctioned, say, $1 million, like he was sanctioned in one of those frivolous cases he brought in the Southern District of Florida against like Hillary Clinton and dozens of others, the sanction's like $1 million, but that's a fraction of the grift that he fundraised off of. So I guess first and foremost, I want to talk about the frivolous lawsuit he filed, or the notice of an intent to file a frivolous lawsuit against the Department of Justice for the valid execution of a search warrant where a magistrate judge found probable cause. So there's no basis. But I know you and I really talked about that. But the broader point I want to ask you about, though, is there's never been a vexatious litigant like a Trump, in the sense that $1 million sanction can be fundraised the next day. So I want to get your legal mind, after we briefly talk about this frivolous case, what can the DOJ do, and what can people do who become the victims of Donald Trump's frivolous cases like this in order to really fight back in these situations?
Yeah. So you're right. The million becomes the cost of doing business, right? And I want to move to it in a moment. But the thing about that, Ben, is it's just recycled old reheated porridge, and he had the porridge, somewhere in the fridge or on the floor. But the point you made about Elon Musk, and even more, that last Friday, I am not an expert. I'm not an expert in the DSM-5. I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't follow his every word. I've kind of given up on trying to psychoanalyze him. But I'm sorry, that Friday performance, even for Trump, was a new low. The guy was friggin' incoherent. And it's interesting. So far, he's getting a pass, even though he's now it's the obvious issue because they were bringing up about Biden before. But you wonder, he's got all of 2, including Musk, events this week. Does his staff sort of know, or something happening because it does seem, normal, he's sort of stream of consciousness, the reheated and either false or kind of nonsensical talking points. But this seemed to me, I don't know what you thought about this, a whole new low of just Trumpist incoherentus, or, whatever you would name the syndrome. All right, let me go now to your lawsuit, because yes, the 100 million, and what a business model, right? Such an ironic thing about Trump. His businesses have always been in the crapper, bankruptcy, etc. And yet, his business model is essentially now being sued by criminally by different, entities and states, and raising money off of it. But this is the very same tired tirade that he did successfully in Mar-a-Lago when Eileen Cannon first did that whole crazy detour with another cause of action. But he's saying it's a political prosecution and they didn't give him warning. Let me just give your listeners 30 seconds to understand the context of this. He now is making a claim for money against the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice and the federal government has what's called sovereign immunity. So they get to decide when they can be sued. And in general, you can sue them if somebody is doing their regular job, but doing it negligently, or the postman, drives the Jeep up onto the sidewalk and hurts your dog. You can't do it for a sort of policy decision. That's something that they haven't waived sovereign immunity for. And so Trump has to try to get around it. And so what he is saying with these just, recycled old stuff is, this wasn't a decision to do a discretionary search. Rather, it was a political prosecution outside the Constitution. And for that reason, it's not normal discretion, blah, 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 blah. Now, the way things work is if you have to first serve it up to DOJ, they get the chance to say yes or no. Here, almost certainly they say no. And then you have a very narrow channel of review in a court. But this is totally DOA. He knows it's DOA. The figure is just fanciful, as you say, and plucked out of thin air. But nevertheless, right, in the overall scheme of things, does Trump sort of make out with this bogus claim because he either raises money off it or gets a little media oxygen, because that's been the big thing for him. He has been, the thing he's always been able to do is get media time. And man, he's been totally sort of outmaneuvered by Harris here. So that could be part of it too. But one thing it ain't is to actually collect money from the DOJ for doing what law enforcement does, searching and his other claim, by the way, is they should have told him before. Why? No reason. You don't tell suspects before you do a search. So that's not going anywhere, but you're right. Does he raise money off it? Get some media attention? Who knows?
So what do you do with a vexatious litigant like that? Now, there are, for people who are formally classified as vexatious litigants in the legal system, who are people who continue to bring frivolous cases over and over again, there's actually a process where litigators can make a motion to a court to declare the litigant a vexatious litigant. And it's a formal designation, which then means before they file a lawsuit, they have to usually maybe they have to post an undertaking, maybe they have to submit a declaration showing extra probable cause with there's heightened burdens, for them. But the thing with Donald Trump is the fact that he's the leader of the Republican Party. I mean, he would otherwise be a vexatious litigant. I don't know. I'm not sure there's anybody who has lost more cases than him in the history of litigation. But it's also, but because his behavior has been normalized, and he's got Mr. and Mrs. Magadonia who give him $1,000 every time he says, buy my American flag pin with the Trump name on it. They go give him the money for this crazy stuff. He has an unlimited war chest to keep these ridiculous lawsuits going, and he's using PAC money for it. So what if you were to be advising the DOJ here, or not the DOJ, it may be too close to home. If you were to be advising a private litigant who was sued by Trump in a situation like this that was highly frivolous, what would you tell them, though, about how you deal with Trump as a vexatious litigant?
Yeah. So look, there are a few things out there, but, as far as vexatious litigants go, DOJ is really banging your head against the wall. They are the world's biggest law firm. And there's some guy, the new guy in the civil fraud section, whatever, who will bang out the new brief. And, they don't care. They're not, they're not billing by the hour, at least in a traditional way. So really, basically the answer for DOJ is, just grind it out, grind it out, grind it out. And maybe it's vexatious, or maybe that junior guy is, I'm sticking it to Trump in front of this judge or that judge. Now, the courts are different, as you say, and I believe the Supreme Court actually has, famously, half of the cases that it gets requests to take our so-called informa pauperis cases. People don't have the money to pay. And when you have people doing it again and again and again, and I was a clerk, and you've seen like petitions, the petitioner says the income tax is unconstitutional, or things again and again. I believe the court can actually say no mas to them, not even a heightened thing. They can, at least for a period of time, but they have to reinstate to get the right to file. Now, there are things in the law, civil, first, if the DOJ, the government comes after you vexatiously, there are ways to get money from them under the so-called Hyde Amendment. And there are different ways the short answer for a vexatious litigant in civil systems is different penalties, like they've got to pay your legal fees. Or we talk about vexatious litigants. What about Rudy Giuliani? He essentially lost his case in defamation. He didn't even hear it on the merits because he was being so vexatious and not playing by the rules. But look, at the end of the day, the courts are the one-person lobby that anybody can go to. And for the most part, Trump wants to just keep, wasting his time and doing it. It's hard for the DOJ to combat it. And the point you make is a really good one, because it's not the same incentive structure. Sometimes you'll have people in jail and they got all the time in the world. They'll keep doing this. So the court will say no. But for a guy to actually file crappy litigation and have ancillary benefits like fundraising, that makes for a really hard problem. But you made the point in the middle of it all, Ben, that he's a Republican case. You're not going to see the DOJ, except in individual cases, it can try to go after him for legal fees. But that's like, the cost of doing business, as you say, and is eclipsed by fundraising, which one hopes he can do for a couple more months, but that'd be about it.
Over under, Trump will file 100 lawsuits over the next few months through December.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
That's your over under. And does it include, Trump is under, but Republican committee, like the one that was just filed, just this week by the Republican.
A Trump or a Trump PAC. The same way Trump. So the same way Trump.
Or a state Republican association in cahoots.
In cahoots.
Over.
It have to over.
Over. Write me down for over.
There, a very lawyerly answer.
What the lawyerly answer is, well, I'd say about 65. No, I'm going for it. Write me for over.
It's subscribe. By the way, subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. It's free to subscribe there. They're on their way to 500,000 subscribers. It's a very important YouTube channel, given the knowledge that Harry provides on that channel. Again, Talking Feds YouTube. Subscribe there. Thanks, Harry. Have a good one.
Thanks, Ben. You too. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.